In BMX racing, we tend to use timing as a measurement of our BMX racing performance, despite the fact that when you cross the finish line, that really determines objectively how you performed. Well, in this video, we're going to talk about the benefits of improving your lap times in an effort to give you instant feedback, and that way you can apply it to your training, and therefore you could benefit in your racing performance. Let's give you the 3 secrets. Let's talk about it. Well, hello. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to another edition of BMX Coach Live. I'm your host, 3-time Olympic coach, Greg Romero, and man, it's so great to see your smiling faces. We are doing a live show, so we go right off the cuff. And man, I'm so happy. Today has been really sunny here in San Diego. And of course, tomorrow, which is Wednesday and the following day, it's gonna rain. So man, really tough on the whole Southern California BMX scene. You know, I know it's so hard for you to, have mercy for us, but the bottom line is it's been really tough down here. A lot of rain, and therefore, a lot of different, you have to look for different alternatives to figure out how you're going to ride and get your training in while it's racing. Looking into the chat right now, we have Rob Thiel, Andrew Grando says, what's good, Coach G? Hey, Coach G, with a hang loose. Man, I am so excited today. Listen, I was thinking about it earlier today. Hey, what am I going to talk about? And one of the things that keeps popping up is timing, right? Timing seems to be a very popular thing now, especially here in the States, where you guys can rent transponders when you guys go to the nationals, and you guys can get feedback on your gate start reaction, and you get your feedback on pretty much your lap times. And it's funny because I coach a lot of riders, and a lot of the parents are always telling me, hey, you know what? My rider is only a couple seconds off, off the top rider. And I think that's great feedback. That's really good feedback. And, that's going to be able to give you a measurement on how, and if you guys are improving with the training and with the preparation that you guys are integrating into your current regimen, okay? When it comes to BMX racing, I know a lot of you guys go to the track time after time. And here's the thing, when it comes to improvement, those that are just beginning and they're going consistently, they're gonna see huge gains in improvement. And on the other spectrum, guys that have been racing for 3, 4, 5 years, going to the track time after time, they're not going to see as much improvement. So again, in this video, I want to talk about ways that you guys can analyze your full lap times and break it down, and that way you guys could figure out for yourselves on which area to attack, if not attack all 3 areas with these 3 secrets in mind. All right, so here we go. Let's talk about it. Secret number 1. What do you guys say? And I got some notes here. First off, let me begin. As a pro, personally, we used to have to do these time trials for these big races like World Cups, and of course, as BMX racing entered the Olympic era, and we started doing World Cup racing, you had to qualify based upon your lap time, and you had 2 chances to break into the top 64. So you would get guys from all over the world, and there would be like 120 riders that show up. Only 64 of them made the cut. So, and you had 2 chances to get a top 64 lap time. And the problem was, you don't really want to mess up your first one, but you wanted a good lap time because it was going to determine the seating in the moto. And not only the seating in the moto, it was also going to determine your lane choice, what lane choice you have within your moto. So there was a lot of pressure when it came down to time trials. And as a coach, I spent a lot of time with my athletes using Dartfish software, which is like an overlay software. And we would analyze, you know, lap after lap at the Olympic Training Center and also at various World Cups. And during practice, we'd always get a couple of full laps and then we would overlay them and then we would determine, hey, what are some of the best strategies in terms of getting an awesome and also a low fast time in an effort to qualify, but also be safe that you don't mess up, because you don't want to race. You don't want to do the second lap, because you're at that point, you're very conservative. And when you're conservative, you're not going to put out your best effort. So what I would do is I would analyze, hey, how can we improve the overall lap time? And, you know, back 12, what year is it now? 2023. So back in 2006, 2007, I don't know how many years that was. 16 years ago, I was really just deep into the software, analyzing and scrubbing video and, you know, taking notes and going through things. And, you know, one of the things that, so not only that, you have the coach side of me. And as a racer, as a professional myself, despite winning over 100 professional races, listen, I want to tell you right now, I was never a top 5 time trial guy. I just wasn't. However, again, I studied and studied on how to lower my lap times because I kept getting it wrong. Okay. So as I got it wrong as a racer, I was able to get it right as a coach. And hopefully I'm going to get it right for you guys as well and share these secrets. One of the things what happened was when I was a racer, I knew I was one of the fastest. I mean, you don't win over 100 professional races on accident, and you don't win without being fast. It's rare. It's hard. Okay. And however, I did learn a few things about lowering my lap times, and I want to share these secrets and discoveries with you. Number one, of course, you see I have right here, gait technique and first straight. When I started analyzing and doing overlays, one of the things I've noticed was that if one got a subpar or just a good gait, okay, listen, to win a time trial at the World Cup level or even any professional level, you need a great gait, right? That means you got to come out of that gate 100% congruent and all out, good technique, good power, totally committed, and on the gas all the way to the first jump. If you could do that, that's a great gait, right? Anything below that is just good. Anything below good is subpar. So the problem I found was that if you got a subpar gait, or if you got a good gait, it was hard to make up time down the first straight. It just wasn't going to happen. I mean, it's not like you guys are racing with gears, okay? It's not like you're just going to click, click, click and make up ground. It's just not going to happen. We're riding on single speed bikes, and you're already programmed, your muscle memory is already programmed to pedal a certain cadence and speed around the track. So it really heightened my awareness and expressed to my riders that, hey, in a time trial, despite the fact that you're the only one that's on the gate, you got to go for it. You got to knock that gate down. You got to be focused. You got to get your timing right. You got to get your technique right. You got to lay the power down, and you got to be 100% congruent that you're getting an awesome start, an outstanding start. Okay. Not a good start. You're getting an outstanding start. And that was really important, especially at that Olympic level where qualifying's everything. And that first moto, being the top seed guy in that moto, getting lane choice, because that's going to set the precedence of how the rest of your day, potentially, how the rest of your day and the outcome is going to be in terms of getting through those single elimination races as well as getting into that medal final. So, gate start, good technique, good reaction, fully committed, okay? First straight, you need a good acceleration down the first straight, all right? Commit all the way to that first jump. Work on your top end leg speed. Make sure that you're hitting your top ceiling of what you're capable of doing from the first jump, after the first jump, rather, all the way into that first turn. All right, are we clear on that? All right, let's keep moving forward here. Number two, turn lines, right? Number two, turn lines. Again, after doing tons of Dartfish video overlays, the next easiest way to lowering your lap time is your line choice in the turns. Personally, I used to make this mistake in time trials thinking that I could just go up a gear, right? Like if I normally raced with a 44.16, I'd go up to a 45.16 for the time trial and be like, dude, I'm going to put a 45 on and I'm going to put a harder gear on, have a little bit more meat under my feet, as I like to say, and I'm just going to pedal the crap out of these turns. Meanwhile, putting a bigger gear on compromised my ability to get a great, outstanding acceleration out of the gate. My power was, the gear felt hard out of the gate. Acceleration was lackluster. I was faster on the original gear that I actually trained on, which was a 44. So I'm going up a tooth. My gate slower, my first straight slower. And then I made the mistake of I'm going to pedal the crap out of these turns. I'm just going to take the outside line, go wide, heading in with a ton of speed. Meanwhile, I'm going faster, but my time's slower, right? It's hard for me to make up ground from a slower gate and a slower first straight, especially within that critical area from the gate all the way to the first jump. I'm just not going to make it up, even with a taller gear. And so I would get into the corner and I would just go outside and pedal the whole thing, right? And meanwhile, I was thinking hey, I'm going to carry my speed out of this second corner. I'm going to be flying. I'm going to hit that second straight, just feeling good exit speed, lots of momentum. And from there, I'm already a bike length behind, if not maybe even 2 or 3 bike lengths behind. And I quantified at the professional level that 1 second behind another competitor is about 3 bike lengths because we're going that fast, right? So think about it, if you're like a 12-year-old and you're off by 2 seconds, that's conceivably going to be anywhere from 6 to 10 bike lengths. That's a lot. 2 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, but 6 to 8 bike lengths does. And obviously the faster you go, the tighter it is, right? 1 second, I always quantified 3 bike lengths, within 3 bike lengths. So, if you can make up, in these 3 areas I'm going to talk about, a third of a second here, a third of a second there, and a third of a second there, that's 1 second. You're talking an improvement of 3 bike lengths, if not, probably 6 if you're younger, right? So back to the turn lines, because here's the thing. I would always teach my riders, you got to take the tightest radius turn without compromising your traction and making sure that you have great exit speed. Because in a time trial, exit speed is important. Now, in the context of BMX racing with other people on the track, you have to take the line that's going to protect your lead coming out of that turn. So that means take an inside line. Perhaps that might slow your exit speed down. And that's okay. Because here's the thing. You're still coming out of that turn in first. You still have the choice of where you want to go on the road because you're ahead of the other riders that are behind you. My father always used to harp on me a lot when I was a 10, 11-year-old kid. I made a lot of mistakes. I was very, very, very hard-headed as a young kid, as some young kids are. Okay. And he would always tell me, Greg, you gotta close the door. You gotta take the inside. Don't let him pass you on the inside. Meanwhile, as a kid, I struggled with the concept of re-accelerating out of the corner, right? Taking an inside line, going up high, and then having to put all this oomph and effort out of the corner. And that bugged me as a little kid because I only had so much energy. I wasn't really trained up to be re-accelerating out of 3 or 4 or 5 corners because back then, tracks, there was a lot of pedaling. There was a lot of pedaling in those tracks back in the late 80s. So that being said, carrying your speed out of the corners, that's something that you guys also need to work on. You can practice that by setting up flat ground slalom course and just practice accelerating out of the corners on flat ground. I found when I can master that, accelerating out of a flat ground corner, I could take a really, really tight low line, of course not compromising traction, and I could carry my speed low. You see a lot of pros. They're able to do that because they're strong. They're fit. They're powerful. They got strength and they can re-accelerate that and they practice that. So think about that with turns. Number one, tight turn lines versus outside lines. Outside lines, you're let's just say, the corner's, I don't know, 80 feet if you measure it from the beginning of the turn to the exit of the turn in the middle. Okay. Inside might be maybe, I don't know, we'll just 60 feet. Way outside, if the middle was 80, if I go up high top, that's going to be more like 100 feet. That's a 20-foot difference. Now, these are just round numbers. I may be exaggerating. I might be not. But it does make a difference by taking a tighter radius line. So consider that. And then, of course, consider working on your strength and power in terms of exit speed. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's go to the third one. Ta-da. Track speed. What do you know? And when I say track speed, we're going to talk about jumps. And, this secret here, it's all about working on your technique and efficiency on the jumps. You have to change your mindset that jumps are meant to build speed, not slow you down. Okay? And I think in terms of the younger riders and new beginners and new intermediates and newly turned experts, we tend to think as jumps as obstacles that are slowing us down. No, you want to change that mindset and think about jumps in a way that's helping you generate speed. So you want to think about getting clean backside every time, getting clean backside and pumping off each backside. Okay. So another thing that I want you to think about is making mistakes, right? If you make mistakes on jumps or in the rhythm section, it's going to cost you speed and it requires exponential energy and effort to regain that lost time and speed. In other words, most times than not, you're not going to make it up, like ever. So you got to master your manualing, master your pumping, master your jumping, right? Everyone's in a different area in this audience here, right? If you're new to the sport and you're young, you're working on pumping. Work on that skill. The older you get, the faster you get, then you're going to be in a compromised position where pumping is just not going to cut it. You're going to be forced to manual. And in some cases, you're going to be forced to jump, right? There's going to be times where jumping is going to be the faster option. So you got to master those skills, especially through the first straight. Make sure that you could take that first jump really well. If there's an opportunity to pedal manual it, then do it. You got to take it. You got to work on it. And then when you get down to the third straight, where typically the rhythm section is, you got to work on your fitness to where you're not making any mistakes. Okay. You're racing with your head. You're focused on speed. You're focused on getting through that rhythm section into that last turn as fast as you can without making any mistakes, without bonking, focusing on being smooth, focus on being efficient, focus on getting speed off of every single backside of that rhythm section and doing it without thinking, getting to mastery, right? Being able to walk without thinking, which most of you guys, if you guys are watching this, can do efficiently and effectively. You want to be able to get your riding through these jumps the same way that you're walking without thinking. Going through that rhythm section, pumping manually, jumping, whatever combination that you do, and you're doing it without thinking. And you're doing it effectively. You're doing it with confidence. And you're doing it with speed. That's BMX racing, my friends. If you guys can get through that rhythm section with fitness, with power, with courage, with efficiency, with mastery, that's half the battle right there. The more you guys fight through a rhythm section, the more you're going to be fatigued. The harder it is for you to keep that lead. The harder it is to stay with the front of the race. The harder it is to cross that finish line because you're going to be fatigued. You're going to be tired. And then you're going to have to recover even more getting into that next moto or that next single elimination lap or even the main event. You don't want to go into the next lap tired. You want to go into that next lap fresh and recharged. Efficiency is a key. Okay. Another component that I wanted to touch on before we keep moving forward here, track speed. Doing intervals is going to help you also be efficient. Because if you get to the rhythm section and your battery is running low and it's 20% and below, right? Then you're going into low power reserve mode. You go into low power reserve mode, you're backing off. You're not giving it 100%. You're protecting yourself. You're backing off. You're trying not to crash. You're trying not to bunk. And what happens when you try not to do something? The unconscious mind doesn't understand negatives. Every time you say not, it doesn't understand that. You're just trying not to crash. You're trying not to bunk. You're trying not to case. You're trying not to, etc. So you got to reframe that. Make sure that you guys are focusing on what you want through that rhythm section, right? Efficiency, power, courage, speed, momentum, execution, backside. All right, guys, hopefully that makes sense. Man, we're moving really fast here. Let's check out the chat room here. We have Thunder Midget says, "What's good, my dude?" Steve Gray, "What's up, Coach G?" 5205 Hydro Man. Tried a few gear ratios this year, right back to 4416. Andrew Grando says 4416 all day. Guys, let's come up with some questions. Any more thoughts in terms of track speed, right? Knocking down these lap times, making you guys faster, making you guys more efficient, making you guys freaking awesome. Not just good, not just great, totally outstanding. That's what we want out of this community in terms of you guys as racers. That's what I'm here for. Not here for mediocrity. All right, guys, so think about some questions, and we're going to start answering some of these questions right after the break. Hey guys, I have a question. What would it do for you if you could enhance your power out of the gate, enhance your sprint speed down the first straight, enhance your skills, enhance your mental performance mind state? What would that do for your racing or your kids' racing? If you're seeing the value of enhancing your BMX performance, consider joining the community of BMX Training Pro and get the same access my Olympic athletes have enjoyed, as well as thousands of BMXers all over the world. Some members use the access to improve their gate start techniques. Some also use the access to keep them motivated to train, and you'll find your reason when you gain access and join BMX Training Pro today. All right, guys, I'm back. Oh, looks like I got an old comment. Let me turn on my camera, start recording. All right, guys, I'm back. BMX Archive says, "What's up, Coach G? Just raced my first amateur national in 29 years in Redmond, Oregon last weekend. Good times." Man, that's great, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. Darren Ross. "I just finished practicing at Rock Hill for the Carolina National this weekend. My max speed was 28.1. Is that good on just the first straight?" I have no idea. How was your gait? How was your acceleration? Here we go. Here's a good question. All right, as it pertains to what we're talking about here, Corey Courier says, "What exercise or drills can I do with kids to build that smoothness through the rhythm sections?" What exercise or drills can I do with kids? What exercise or drills can I do with kids to build that smoothness through rhythm sections? They just can't get the building of speed through rolling through the section. Gosh, what's wrong with me? I can't even speak. I need to focus on speaking better. I got to reframe that, Greg. Yeah, here's the thing. Several things that you guys could do with kids to work on their smoothness through rhythm sections. Number one, working on pumping. Approach the rhythm section really slow, 1-2 miles an hour, and focus on them getting good backside in effort to get through all the way through the rhythm section. That's a great way to focus on technique, to get them to really focus on and work on technique and get them to understand that the backside is their friend. And when their backside is their friend and not their enemy, and they're focusing on getting good backside, whether they're pumping manually or jumping, then they're going to understand the benefits and reap those benefits. And it's going to be very exponential, especially if you're able to demonstrate, like take a pro or take another rider. I don't know if you ride, but especially if you demonstrate yourself with the bike, approach that rhythm section really slow and bunny hop into that first roller and just start manually pumping and show how fast you are at the end of the rhythm section as opposed to how slow you were in the beginning, and show that exponential speed buildup and work on that with the kids. I think that's a great one. Thank you for the question. What other questions do we have? Okay, BMX Archive has a question here. We'll get to that here soon. I'm just trying to work on. I'm not trying. I'm looking for my comment moderation. There it is. Jack Baker says, "I'm sorry I'm late, man, dude. You're penalized." BMX Archive, my man, BMX Archive. If you guys haven't, check out BMX Archive. Make sure you subscribe to his channel. That's my boy, Corky Gainsford. Corky's been racing as about as long as anyone here, including myself. And back in the day, his father was really good about taking the dad cam and filming all the races of the 80s, the 90s. And I'm actually in a lot of those videos. So look up BMX Archive. Super grateful for the question, BMX Archive. Corky asked, question, what's your best advice for gaining, What's your best advice for gaining a quicker second and third pedal out of the gate? That's a great question. I'm really big on technique and efficiency first, right? If you have technique and efficiency, that's going to display and demonstrate power itself. So getting a second, third pedal out of the gate, you want to focus on that first pedal. How's the first pedal dictating and setting you up for the second, third pedal? So the first pedal needs to be all about getting that first movement of the head and shoulders correctly first, followed by a simultaneous extension of the front leg through that front pedal. And when you're in that position, your shoulders should be right over the handlebar grips. Now, the trick is at the full extension of that first half crank, getting into your second half crank, right? Because you're saying second, third pedal, that's really like a pedal and a half. And a lot of things happen in that pedal and a half. So I tend to think as a coach, I break down the pedals 1, 2, 3 is really like 1.5 cranks. So getting back to the full extension of the first half crank with your shoulders over the handlebar grips and you're about to get in that second pedal, it's really all about holding that position of your shoulders over the handlebar grips and making sure that your hips don't go far back into the seat and then have to spend time coming back into that optimal position to extend through that hip, knee, and ankle joint. So it takes core work. It takes technique. You could practice this doing slow roll-offs off a box, or even having your handlebar up against a wall or a pole, and focus on that first movement, and then focus on keeping your shoulders over the handlebar grips for those first 3 half cranks, and making sure that you're driving the hips forward and extending on each crank, and making sure that the hips aren't coming back behind the seat. Because once the shoulders come back and the hips come back, then that's lost time. You're out of position, and no power. There's no power when you're out of position. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, wait. Corky modified his answer, or he modified his question rather. Sorry to clarify. Mostly asking about the second half crank and third half. Yeah, as those seem super critical in overall out of the gate speed. Yes, absolutely. Hopefully that makes sense, man. I appreciate that. Oh, we got a confidence question. I love confidence questions. Ken McLeod says, hey, Coach G, what's the best way to build a younger rider's confidence down a steep gate like Rock Hill this weekend? Our home gate is much flatter. Well, here's the thing. I mean, how do you know that there is no confidence? What do you mean by that? If you're saying more confidence, does he art does he already have confidence? Wait, you didn't say more confidence, so forgive me. I'm putting words in your mouth. Yeah, you're looking to build confidence. Well, are they not confident? That I have to understand. So maybe you could rephrase that question. I'll come back to you, Ken. I really appreciate that. Give me more clarity on what you mean by confidence. Is it more speed? Is there something limiting? Are they scared that the hill is steep? Are they afraid that they're going to hit the gate? Like what am I presupposing or mind reading here that's preventing them from not having confidence because they're practicing on a flat gate at home, and then when they show up to Rock Hill, oh, it's steep. I need to know the mindset. Have they been to Rock Hill before? Is it a first time thing, or is it something that the kid actually told you, hey dad, I don't know what's going on with that Rock Hill starting hill. It seems really steep and fast. I'm not sure about that. Is there some uncertainty? Therefore, he's not confident. And so therefore, how can we build it? Give me more clarity on that and I'll come back to you, man. Sorry, that's just how it's hard to read words, right? Like there's no tone, there's no body language. Low and slow. Here we go. I like this. Low and slow. Low and slow says, what's a good way to slow reaction time down for gate starts? Going off first beep, hit the gate due to slower gate. I know I need to practice in general on gates. Let me see if I can understand that question. What's a good way to slow reaction time down for gate starts? Ooh, man, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. Okay, so what you're trying to ask is, hey, my gate is slow at my track. How can I slow down my reaction so therefore I don't hit the gate? Number one, you don't want to try to slow down your reaction, meaning you don't want to I want to react like 80%. That's too hard. I mean, who wants to think about that? When it comes to gates, when it comes to reaction time out of the gate, you want to go 100% all out every time and time. So here's the thing. You want to make a micro adjustment. Maybe lean back a little bit further and get it to the point where when you're going 100% and you're not hitting the gate, then wherever you're set up in your starting stance is just right. You want to set up to where you're just right. Now, I'll give you this. A long time ago, a legend by the name of Gary the Lumberjack Ellis. He was a professional, and when I turned pro, he was already a senior pro, and he was already world champion, won 3 USA BMX titles. And I would always ask him questions. I was a sponge. I was lucky enough to be a rookie teammate of his. And I would ask him, it's like, dude, like, what's your plan when you show up to a track that you haven't raced at or that you haven't raced at in a while? And maybe it's another track, like going to Rockford, going to these cornerstone tracks that we race at all around the country: Black Mountain, Rockford, South Park, Houston, Oklahoma, Rock Hill. All those gates have their nuances. They all have different timing, different materials. Some gates that are lighter will drop faster. Some gates that are heavier will drop slower. Some gates might be the same gate as the next gate, but the air pressure is turned down so that the gate drops slower. There's all kinds of weird things that go on in terms of timing. The one thing that he told me that I'm going to share with you right now, this secret, is he always tried to hit the gate on purpose if he could, right? And then he would make his micro adjustment from there. So he would figure out, hey, what's too hot, what's too cold, and what's just right, right? And figuring out what that timing is. And in the case with the random start, listen, you don't want to when I hear the first beep, I'm going to go 80% so I don't hit the gate. Guess what? What happens when you focus on something you don't want? It's going to happen. You're going to hit that gate. So forget all that nonsense. That's overthinking it. What you want to think about is 100% congruency and confidence, launching out of that gate, executing your technique, making sure you're getting your second, third pedal, being super efficient. When you get your technique and you're super efficient and you're powerful, focus on getting your stance. Focus on getting your stance in a position, leaning back far enough to where you don't hit the gate. Leaning back far enough to where you nail that gate down perfectly every time. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. I might use that one for a social media cut down. Thank you. Jack Baker says he subscribed to BMX Archive. Yeah, man. That's right. Okay, what else? What other questions do we have? Thunder Midget says, he has a comment. I want to acknowledge Thunder Midget. He's great. That's what I struggled with in Oregon this past weekend. Didn't get back on the pedal soon enough, especially out of turn 1. Oh yeah, because we were talking about momentum and acceleration out of first turns or any corners. And that's something that you want to work on for sure. Again, one of the secrets that I did was back in the day, we created this slalom course on dirt. And it was like a mountain bike flat ground slalom course. And I would practice it probably twice a week. And I would I'd actually had a mentor and I'd race my mentor. His name was Cecil Johns. And man, we would race each other and he would beat me and I was faster than him, but he would beat me because he was more efficient in the corners. He was able to get on the gas out of the corners. And when he was able to be efficient getting on the gas, he just pulled away. So I had to figure out a way to stay with him. And when I learned how to pedal on flat ground and accelerate off of flat ground, coming off the angle of the bike, I was able to apply that going low in turns and be able to come out with speed low just as well as coming out in the middle of the turn. So yeah, man, you got to work on that. That's great. Thank you. Let's see. Let's get back to Ken McLeod. He talked about confidence. Okay, so Ken McLeod, his question was, hey, Coach G, what's the best way to build a younger rider's confidence down a steep gate like Rock Hill? Our gate is much flatter. And then he followed up, last year was our first time at Rock Hill and they felt like the hill was too steep. He says STT, but we all know what he meant. What does that mean, too steep? How's that a problem? That sounds like more of a mental thing, right? That's a mental block. And so how can we remove that block from the younger kids? Well, pretty easy. Number one, let's go through a list of ways that we can easily dissolve these mental blocks, okay? I'm going to throw a couple things out there. So you might want to get a notebook or take some notes or whatever you need to do or remember this. Number one, I would say, hey, listen, first off, yeah, the starting hill is steep and it's steep for everybody. Number two, yeah, it's steep, and when it's steep, it's fast, and when it's fast, it's fun, right? Isn't it faster to go? Isn't it funner to go fast? I'm just trying to wrap my head around how is it so steep to where they're scared, right? Maybe you guys need to find a steep area in the neighborhood. Now, if you live like in the middle of nowhere and it's flat, like I used to do when I lived in Oklahoma, like 20 years ago, I would find a downhill, I would find a freeway overpass, a downhill area, just any street that had a downhill, and I'd actually practice box sprints on a downhill. That's the only way. You got to impose the demand, and that way they're already used to it. Now, confidence. Is it like, oh man, I'm not fast enough because it's fast? If that's the case, then maybe lower the gear at home while you're doing gates, and maybe find an area where, there's already hill, lower the gear, find a hill, and get them to come out of the gate and spin their little butt off, right? But make sure you put your race gear back on when you're practicing gates, and also you put that same race gear on when you get to Rock Hill. Here's the thing. You got to tell your kid that BMXers are all about adapting easily and effortlessly. That's what BMXers do. We don't overthink things. We just do it, right? You got to quit thinking and just do it. Sometimes that you just have to, that's not even coaching. You just got to you have to give them instructions and just tell them, quit thinking and do that now. Sometimes that's more effective than anything. My man Corky coming back to me, BMX Archive. He has a second question. What's your advice to increase ability to spin the cranks faster? I like to lower my gear, but when I do, I lack power because my legs literally won't spin fast enough. Yeah, man, we've addressed this many times in the past, right? Anytime you lower the gear, the muscle memory says, this gear is too easy. I'm not capable of spinning this easy gear fast because I'm used to this other gear. So we have to program that. And here's a secret. I'll give you a little quick secret. Remember a guy by the name of Alan Foster? When we used to go to these indoor races where we knew that, man, we're going to have to drop down from the 45 down to a 43 because the first straight's going to be 50 feet long. It's not 50 feet long, but it's really short. It's like, Vegas short and indoor Vegas short. South Point indoor Vegas short. So we all knew that we weren't going to race with our outdoor gearing, and everyone back then ran really tall gears. And they do still today, but you're not going to run a 45-16 on an indoor track where, the first three lanes 1, 2, and 3 were by default going to hit the podium. So you would already want to adapt to a lower gear. And if you already knew that you're going to run a 44, drop down one tooth, for example, or if you're running a 44 everywhere, Christophe Levesque style, you're running a 44 everywhere, and you know that you're going to run a 43, what Alan Foster would do was he would actually train on a 42 and force himself to spin even more, and he would actually do that at the track, which was kind of weird. But he would do gates with the 42, and he would do sprints with the 42. And that way, when he put the 43 on for the weekend of racing, he felt normalized. So that's a way to do it. Otherwise, if you're not changing the gear, then and you want to spin faster, then you just need to practice sprints. Straight up, you need to do sprints. You need to integrate that 2 or 3 times a week and get really efficient in terms of technique, making sure you're in that optimal acceleration position if you're doing stand-start sprints. And then if you're doing, you can integrate even like a jump sprint where you're already rolling, and when you're already rolling, that's gonna force you to get on top of the gear even faster. Okay, so many ways to get fast. Sprints are going to be the best way. It's very, very specific. There's direct crossover. What other questions do we have? Michael Hecht. Haven't seen him in a minute. Michael Hecht says, hey, coach, now that I'm clipped in, instead of looking at my gate as a first, second pedal, should I be trying to maximize the complete first rotation of the cranks? Yeah, I mean, the reason why we tend to break up those first half cranks is we're trying to scrutinize our ability to hold that acceleration position at the extension of every pedal, the downstroke, where the pedals are at 6 and 12. Because when the pedals hit 6 and 12, the problem is shoulders tend to come back off the bars and the hips tend to come back behind the seat. And you'll find that in weaker riders, right? Younger and weaker riders, that'll happen. And when that happens, they're doing this with their hips and their upper body, right? If they're going that way, they're spending too much time doing this. And you want to be forward, getting that first half crank, second half crank, third half crank. I have no problems. If you want to look at it as one complete crank, great. Just make sure that, again, the shoulders are forward and the hips are forward. I tend to look at it as like 2 gate starts, and I have no problems with that. If you feel like you want to look at it as one complete crank, great. None of us are right, none of us are wrong. You just want to make sure that at the extension, where the cranks are 6 and 12, that you're on top of the money and you guys are getting after it. Because that's everything. It doesn't matter how strong you are. Technique is where the power is at. 5205 Hydro Man has an interesting comment. 5205 Hydro Man says, I stopped listening to the beeps go off the lights big race weekends. It's too loud to hear correctly. Yeah, I agree, right? We tend to react faster with sight rather than sound. So yeah, I think that's a great call. If you guys are going to a new track and it's too noisy. I had a client the other day that I was doing a coaching call with, and it's funny, she actually had an issue with being hesitant coming out of the gate. And it was costing her. She wasn't able to execute the technique that we talked about. We did all this training, the strength training, these plyos, all the speed training, and none of it was working. And then she decided, you know what? I think there's a hesitation emotionally, mentally. And it happened when she flipped the gate. So unconsciously, when she's coming out of the gate, she has a hesitation. She doesn't want to hit the gate because she flipped it. And it happened at a race where the announcer was way too loud and they couldn't hear the cadence properly, right? She likes to keep her head down and just listen and go off that first beep, that first horn. She flipped the gate, put a meaning on it. Her unconscious mind took that meaning as truth and basically programmed a hesitation. So anyways, wanted to share that with you. You gave me a random comment. I'm going to give you a random. Maybe you were talking to somebody else. I don't know. What other questions do we have? Man, we're getting close here to the end. Jack Baker, here we go. Great question. Jack says, how do I help my brother not being scared of cutting people off? How is it a problem to cut people off? Does he feel bad? Listen, BMX is not man, I'm getting excited. BMX racing is like being in the octagon sometimes, right? For some people, they feel like when the gate drops, it's like downhill skiing and they're by themselves and they're in this flow. Either way, someone can knock you out of your state, right? Someone can give you an elbow and all of a sudden you're out of the flow. Number one, I think BMX is best when you're aggressive, right? BMX is best when you're aggressive, going for it, okay? When you go for it, you're not backing off. When you're not backing off, you're going for it. You're going fast. You're going you're going all the way down that first straight, all the way to the first turn, committed, fully committed. And that's what BMX is all about. It's all about having courage. So in terms of cutting people off, number one, is it necessary to cut anybody off? I don't know. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Right? You look at the Olympic gold medalist Nick Keeman. He takes lane 8. He ain't cutting anybody off. He's just motoring everyone down that first straight, all the way to that first turn. He don't need to cut anybody off. So maybe, Jack, maybe you need to tell your brother, hey, let's work on some first straights. Let's work on our gate start technique, our efficiency to come out of the gate, and actually our efficiency and power from the gate to the first jump. Improve that area. Improve that, and then maybe he doesn't have to worry about, oh my gosh, I got to cut somebody off, right? Even the parents, you don't have to worry about your kid hammering him that you got to cut him off. Now, do you need to get in someone's wheelhouse and take the line away? There's a difference there. The problem is that cutting people off seems malicious when really it's just a strategy. Hey, I'm taking your line away. I'm making you concede and making you back off. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you had a bad experience where you cut someone off and you guys both fell, then that's a problem. You're not going to want to cut anybody off because now you put a meaning on it. The meaning is now, if I cut them off, I'm going to fall. So therefore, I'm not going to cut anyone off. BMX is an aggressive sport. You got to get over your crap really, really quickly. Don't make a meaning on anything that happens badly. Get over it and move on. Once you put a negative meaning on it, it's going to hold you back unconsciously. And then you got to come to me or a psychotherapist or a psychologist and try to unpack that stuff and get rid of the baggage. So it's your guys' jobs as athletes, as parents, to not put any negative meaning on anything that happens badly on the track. Hey, is everything cool? Don't worry about it. Brush it off, get up, let's get back and do it again. Express some courage. Encourage courage. That's funny. Oh man, it's ridiculous, man. Sometimes over here, I just feel like I'm just out of my mind. I'm over here talking to myself. I'm talking to a camera lens and I can't even see you guys, but all you guys see me. It's really weird. Guys, we're getting down to the end here. Looking forward to having a great dinner. Oh, Sarah Nalivo. Here we go. Sarah asked, any pointers on getting a rider refocused before a moto when they get in the state of low energy, mentally and or physically, and they got to bring up the energy dial? Yeah, that comes down to getting into your ideal performance mind state, right? And I think I gave Mateo, your son, an anchor. So you got to hit that anchor, get into state, right? BMX racing, being that, again, we spoke about it a minute ago, that it's almost like, for most, getting into the octagon, getting into a ring, the gates dropping, everyone's a prize fighter, trying to outposition each other with elbows and handlebars and hips and trying to cut people and shut people down and make people concede. It's an aggressive sport. Sometimes you have to bring that aggressive mind state. So maybe you just simply need to be able to trigger yourself to be aggressive. If you could trigger yourself to be aggressive, it's going to be a lot easier, okay? Because if you're not aggressive, then you're going to be the one that's getting cut off. You're the one that's going to be conceding. You're the one that's going to be backing off, and you're going to be the one that's going to be watching the finals. BMX is an aggressive sport. You got to show up aggressive before that gate drops. Sarah, we'll take care of that. We'll talk about that. I appreciate the question, though, and the opportunity, as always, to be your coach. What else do we got? No more questions, man? What's going on? Am I talking so much that you guys can't even think about a good question for me? I'm kidding. There's a lot of good questions in here. Looks like we're getting through a lot of these. So I'm scrolling up, looking up. Like Steve Gray's in the house, but I don't see him asking any questions. Jack's talking about getting new clip shoes. Steve Gray says, always appreciate you sharing insights. I appreciate you, my brother. Always appreciate you sharing insights and experience. Have a good evening, Coach G. Right on. Basic BMX, my boy D Ford says, late check-in coach. Hey, you're fine, man. You know, better late than never. Joe Tag says, thanks again from Chile. I love that. I think we had another guy from South Africa. Like, it's crazy how we're able to get people from different time zones. What other questions do we have? Cool, guys. Man, I really appreciate you guys. We're almost to the hour mark. I allocate an hour for you guys. Yeah, guys, listen, you know, as always, for the most part, I do this for free here out of the kindness of my heart because I love you guys and I love the sport. It's done really, really well for me. Pay it forward. Share this video with somebody. Share it on your Facebook. Share it on your social media feed. Share it with somebody that needs to hear it, that needs it, right? Someone that needs it, that BMX is all about helping people to get better. If we can help out everyone to get better, listen, there's abundance of awards of a success for everyone in the sport of BMX, right? Sure, not everyone's going to get an Olympic gold medal, but local races, regionals, nationals, there's plenty of races to be had. And I want to see all you guys succeed, doing better than what you can, right? Because you guys are awesome. You guys are all full of potential, man. It's crazy how much potential you guys have. Sometimes you just got to remove the things that are limiting you from experiencing that potential. So if you guys can, please share this video with somebody that needs to remove something in an effort to be at their potential. Just send it to them. If we can help out more people in this sport, the more they're going to have success. And when they're having success, they're having fun, right? Isn't having success fun? And so more people having fun, more people having success, they're going to be around the sport a lot longer. I've been in the sport a long time. I see a lot of people, a lot of faces come and go, but they always come back. Thunder Midget says, great show. Derek says, thanks. Corey says, thanks, coach. And man, you guys, Rick Lowry, I was going to say, you guys have a good night, but I think Rick Lowry has a question. We'll hit up Rick. I like Rick. Rick Lowry has a question. We'll answer this question and then we're out. It's time for dinner. Rick Lowry says, can you talk about the importance of getting the front tire up when needed pre-manual? Ooh, well, yeah, I like a pre-manual. Rick, you come from the same era of BMX racing that we came up in the 90s, and a pre-manual, I think that was more of a 2000 term. Before that, we called it speed jumping, right? It was just simply picking up, getting that front wheel over that roller, rather than just rolling off the roller and not getting backside. Pre-manualing is going to allow the front end to not touch the face of the jump. And when the front end doesn't have to touch the face of the jump and you're rolling through it, you're manualing through it, you're going to get good backside. But for the most part, your front wheel, if it doesn't have to touch it, you're going to be able to maintain speed, presupposing that front tire comes down on the backside. So yeah, picking up is key, especially if you're fast enough and you're strong enough to do it. It's just like bunny hopping. Sometimes there's jumps that I wouldn't even pre-manual. I would just bunny hop over the thing. So it all depends. It all depends on how fast you're going. And also if you're strong enough to do it, because it does require a lot of strength. It requires upper body strength. I know when I pick up at the end of the weekend, my biceps hurt from picking up for jumps. You have to work on it, and that way you could repeat it and do it every time. BMX Archive says, I didn't know that it was no longer called speed jumping. Dude, they've went through 3 iterations. It went from speed jumping to pre-manualing to now just picking up, right? Oh, he picked up for it. All right, guys, you guys have a good night. As always, keep working hard. Keep bringing the joy to the track. Keep smiling. Have fun no matter what. Keep working on your technique, gate start technique, acceleration technique, jumps, rhythm sections. Keep focusing on lowering your lap times. That's where the money is at. All right, guys. You guys have a good night, and I'll see you guys next week. Adios.